If you want to understand what's the matter with murderous Memphis, watch rapper Jay Fizzle's interview on YouTube. The 28-year-old showcases his more than 15 baby mamas. Baby mama culture produces 19-year-olds who live stream their killing sprees. The destruction of family destroys all morals, norms, and order. Culture kills, not color. I will never apologize for hating the culture that celebrates, tolerates, and proliferates a mindset that teaches black people to see themselves as victims, dependent on white guilt and criminals. Our fixation on color prevents us from examining the culture we've adopted or been assigned. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Thursday to you and yours. The weekend's almost here. I'm headed to Dallas this weekend, so I'm actually a little excited. I'm going to Dallas tonight for the weekend. I'm very excited. Shamika Michelle's here with me. Shamika, did I tell you who I'm having dinner with on Friday?
You did.
A humble brag. Reverend Tony Evans.
That's
Dr.
exciting.
Tony Evans. I'm very excited about that. And I'm going to his church, Oak Cliff Bible College, or Oak Cliff Bible Study. Anyway, I'm going to his church on Sunday, and so I'm very excited about that. Big weekend plan, but and tomorrow I'll be sitting in for Glenn Beck on his radio and BlazeTV show in the morning, and then I'll turn back around and we'll do another episode of Fearless on Friday. So I have a very, very busy week and weekend planned. So you'll get a double dose of me tomorrow. But today, a single dose will do. I'm like, isn't that the Johnson & Johnson shot? You only need the one for COVID?
That's it.
Yeah,
that's
you only
what they
need the
claim.
one, and that'll give you the clot almost immediately. I'm sorry. Let me take that back before I get killed on YouTube. But anyway, fantastic show for you today. Shamika Michelle is in studio with me. Delano Squires, smartest man on the show, will join us, and we'll talk about what I teased at the beginning of the show. We'll actually do the fire starter in the second segment of the show because football starts tonight. College football's already started, but the NFL starts tonight with the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams. And so we're going to bring in our man, Steve Kim, to talk about the start of the NFL season. Many people consider this the start of the descent of my bank account because I start gambling at the start of the NFL season, and I'm not good. I don't know if I don't know what you have an opinion on gambling, sports betting, men who gamble?
As long as you don't go broke.
Oh, well.
As long as no one's hungry or homeless, I think you're all right.
I'm getting close. It's just like I started the year out with that Ball State Tennessee pick. That hurt.
That was bad.
You know, tonight I'm probably going to be on the Buffalo Bills, although I haven't decided just yet. Maybe Steve Kim will talk me into doing something else. Steve Kim, the Korean Cosell. Let's talk some football, and we'll start with tonight's Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Thursday night football opener. It will be Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth and the Sunday night football crew calling this Thursday night kickoff. Steve, it's the Bills versus the Rams. Everybody, or virtually everybody, has the Bills as their Super Bowl pick. I think they're the betting favorite, and Josh Allen is the betting favorite to be the MVP of the league. Let's take them in order. Let's start with tonight. Bills favored by 2.5 at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. I disagree with this pick, actually. I don't think Buffalo's going to go on the road and beat the Los Angeles Rams. If my memory serves me, aren't the Rams and Matt Stafford the defending Super Bowl champions? They got Aaron Donald and all that. Where do you stand on tonight's game, Steve?
Oh, wait a minute. I thought I was coming to talk about Brittany Griner. Oh, that's right. We never pretended to care. By the way, notice how that thing has disappeared the last couple of weeks? I guess all the activists are setting their NFL fantasy squads, right? Got to have priorities. But yeah, this is an interesting game.
Hold for 1 second, Steve. Hold for 1 second. Why football's kicking off and you're bringing up Brittany Griner? Explain that to me again. What were you doing there?
Because it explains the hypocrisy, how really nobody cares. When was the last time you heard about the story? I mean, seriously, did she suddenly get released?
I'm going to tell you when the last time I heard about the story, when you just forced it into today's show for no reason. That's the last time I heard about it.
Because it's funny that the activists suddenly say, okay, let's let the NFL season start. We got other priorities, and they're probably going to spring it on us in about, 2 weeks? That's what I figure. But anyway, going back to the game, I think Buffalo
Hold
has
on. I'm fascinated. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated by your fascination with Brittany Griner. Is there something you want to tell us? We just heard Jennifer Lawrence say she has nightmares about Tucker Carlson. She has a lot of dreams about Tucker Carlson. Is Steve Kim in the privacy of his home, or perhaps at a massage parlor? Are you thinking about Brittany Griner in your private moments?
No, never. But I just think it's hilarious that we have these random moments where every once in a while I'll see that hashtag #FreeBG or We're All BG, and like I told you a couple weeks ago, no one cares. And this is the problem that I have with the general mainstream media, that we literally say, or they preach that we should care about her, that this is important, and then all of a sudden they just put her on layaway. Remember layaway? I'm old enough to do layaway. Did a lot of it myself at Chess King. And then all of a sudden, now we bring it back. Like, we want to make a deposit. And so that's the thing that's really hilarious to me, that the very same people that will tell you that Brittany Griner was important or that Colin Kaepernick was important are going to be watching NFL, the greatest show in American sports. And I think it's a celebration. I actually think this day should be a national holiday because, quite frankly, after this, Jason, I'm not getting anything done till about 5:20 Pacific time, and I can't wait.
So I'm going to say this. You've hijacked the show with the Brittany Griner talk.
Thank you.
And I completely somewhat disagree with you about the whole national holiday thing, because I used to be right there with you. But I didn't watch a preseason game this year, which is the first time in my lifetime. Other than Aaron Rodgers and I love Aaron Donald as well to watch him play. But there's only a handful of NFL players that I really care about and really root for. I'm going to watch, but the passion isn't the same as it has been in previous years. I'm a bit unprepared for this NFL season, and I'm hoping that's going to improve my betting. Give me some advice on tonight. I think I'm going to take the Rams.
Whitlock, I don't even know who you are anymore. Give me a break. Look, I think the Bills have the best roster up and down in the National Football League. And they're a little bit younger. They're right in that prime spot where they have enough players below the age of 30. And they have a quarterback that I truly believe is elite. For all this talk of who's the next great dominant quarterback, it's that guy right there, Josh Allen. Also, they got a young running back out of Georgia.
Whoa. I want you to clarify that statement.
Josh Allen.
And so by next, you're not dismissing Patrick Mahomes. You're saying he's already a great quarterback and he's going to join him. Or you're saying you think he's going to be better than Patrick Mahomes?
I think he'll be right up there with him. If we go back about 9-10 months ago, you asked me, is Josh Allen, in the immortal words of the late, great Emmanuel Stewart, elite? Those last two drives that he put at Arrowhead Stadium, where the defense and coaching just let him down, that was elite stuff, what he did. Josh Allen right now should be a Buffalo legend, what he did. But they couldn't hold a lead in 13 seconds. But he's the best combination of arm strength, arm talent, and athleticism. Just look at his stats. The guy throws for well over 44 or 4,000 yards the last 2 years. Throws a lot of touchdown passes. Interceptions were up a little bit last year. He's got to improve that. but he also rushes for 600-700 yards. He is the prototype for modern day football. To me, there's two quarterbacks that really stand out that you say, Steve, you get to start a franchise with one quarterback. It's either the guy in Kansas City or this kid here from Wyoming. It's clearly those two guys for me. And maybe Justin Herbert can make some noise because of his size and his strength and his arm talent. But I'm a big fan of Josh Allen.
And so you like the Bills tonight? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's a tough one. Sometimes those ring ceremony games for any championship team are very, very tough. And this is still a home game for the Los Angeles Rams at SoFi Stadium. That's a good one. If you actually said to me, Steve, first game of the year, everyone's healthy, and you get the Rams at home with points, common sense dictates you got to take the points. But again, this doesn't necessarily mean anything. There's 17 games now. This thing is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I don't think one game's going to really determine all that much. But if I was a betting man, which I'm not, I would actually shade the Rams tonight.
And so do you have Josh Allen as your MVP based off of everything you just said? I would tend to think that's who you would bet. Josh?
In my view, for him to take that next step, get to 40 touchdown passes and be under double digits in interceptions, something that didn't happen last year. He hit a rough spot. The Buffalo Bills for about 4 weeks last year hit a funk. I don't know why, but again, this is a very, very tough league. But they added someone in the draft that I think is going to play a very big role. His name is James Cook. He was part of that two-headed running back tandem at the University of Georgia. Thought the Bills were a little bit below average or just average at the running back spot. I know they wanted some extra juice there, and I don't mean Orenthal James. James Cook gives them speed and the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. I saw one of their preseason games, because I'm still a football guy, Whitlock. I still watch August football. I like what I see out of this guy. He may not be a 25-carry heavy-duty back, but in today's football, where everything is one back, 3-4 wide, he can be used and deployed as an extra receiver. I think he's going to be a very, very key weapon for Buffalo.
I kind of like Patrick Mahomes at plus 900 for the MVP, and that's not a homer pick. That's just about value. Josh Allen plus 650, Tom Brady plus 850. The other guy, how can you ever count Aaron Rodgers out of an MVP race? But I would say this. I don't think Josh Allen is going to win the MVP, and that's no knock on Josh Allen. I think he's super talented. But go ahead. A
couple of those names you mentioned. Tom Brady has two issues. His offensive line is banged up. They lost guys early in camp, and he seems to be getting bull rushed by Giselle. That thing's on the rocks. Let me just tell you something. When Tom goes back into that mansion, as they say, he's sleeping on the couch. I mean, honestly, for all the heat that Leonardo DiCaprio gets, I get it now. Because if Tom Brady can't have a good marriage, man, maybe DiCaprio had a point this whole time. Maybe he's giving the blueprint. The other thing, Aaron Rodgers, who's he throwing to? I mean, he's losing an absolute number one guy in Davante Adams. And with that said, I'm going to segue, because that's what I do. I'm a television broadcasting pro. Derek Carr's a dark horse for MVP. I know me and you have different opinions about this. I've always been a little bit more favorable to Derek, maybe not a luxury car, but I think this year with Davante Adams, a healthy Darren Waller, I kind of like the numbers he's going to put up there with Josh McDaniel. Watch Derek Carr.
Don't put thoughts in my head. I'm a Derek Carr fan as well.
Okay.
But you've given me an excellent excuse to bring Shamika into this conversation with your Giselle comments. Honest to goodness, are you aware of this, that there may be trouble between Tom Brady and Giselle Bundchen? You're not aware?
No, and I'm devastated because that's why I even like Tom Brady, because of Giselle and their Oprah interview. You know, I didn't think I was going to have much to add to this conversation. I was thinking, why is it a ball if it's oblong?
I don't know if, well, I do kind of, Brady disappeared for like 11 days from training camp.
Okay.
And it wasn't injury related. He just disappeared and came back and said, I got a lot of SHIT going on in my life. I'm an old man. And then the New York Post, I think page 6, reported that there's problems between Giselle and Tom, and that's why he disappeared. She's upset that he came back. He originally retired. Then he came back and said he's playing at age 45, and she's tired of raising the kids on her own, and she thought he was committed to retirement, and so there's problems. And I got to be honest with you, and Steve, I'm kind of glad you brought it up. I take Giselle's side on this.
You do? I don't. Wasn't he a football player before they got together?
Yeah, and her expectations were, well, when they got married, was like, he'll be done by 40. And if he says he's retiring, and I start making my mind up or setting my expectations, or, well, he said he's retiring, he said he's done. And so she feels like she's reached the finish line, I've supported you, and then he comes back to play 1 more year, if not 2 more years. I think she has every right to be upset, because look, happiness is based on expectations. Don't dangle the retirement carrot in front of her and then snatch it away and expect her not to be mad about it.
But she knows him better than I do, and even when he announced his retirement, I didn't think it was final. I don't know, maybe because Michael Jordan retired and then came back, but you know this man, so you should know that playing football is his passion, and so this is the man that you married. Suck it up, Girl Scout. It'll be okay, hopefully he doesn't get hurt, but I take his side. I think women have been breaking men for too long and trying to get them to come away from the very thing that gives them the lifestyle they're able to enjoy.
No.
Yes.
Giselle's worth more money than Tom Brady.
Well, I'm sure she would not have married a man off the street. So she is enjoying a cushy lifestyle because of who he is as well. She's been off the runway for a long time. So
hey guys,
I think she should just suck it up.
I've got so many thoughts here, but this is where America truly misses the sage wisdom of Kevin Samuels. Rest in peace. But let me bring a few points here. The next time an athlete says that when they're retiring, I want to spend more time with my wife and kids, are we going to stop believing that crap? It's not true. But this takes me back to one of the great lines of the Rocky franchise. Remember when Rocky and Adrian went on their first date, I think the day before Thanksgiving, and they're going to the ice rink and gave the guy a 20 spot for 10 minutes, ended up getting 3. And Adrian said to Rocky, well, why do you fight? And he says, because I can't sing or dance. And I think that's the point Shamika's making. She knew what she was getting into. He can't sing or dance. And then you go to Rocky IV. Apollo Creed dies. Oh, man, that Russian just hammered him. So he says, I'm going to fight Drago. And then once again, Adrian, who was a buzzkill throughout that whole series. She was never the most supportive wife, by the way. So they're arguing inside their mansion. And Rocky said it. You know you married a fighter. So the bottom line is very simple. Tom has always been clear, guys. I want to play till I'm 50. Didn't he say that, Jason? So why is she stunned by this? Stand by your man. Jeez, I'm sick of it. Poor soccer mom.
She's stunned because he said he's retiring. And, don't use the R word if you have no intention. Don't change someone's expectations.
Jason, one last point.
I'm going to side with Giselle, even though I
Jason,
don't want Tom. I'm still on Team Tom, but I'm siding with Giselle in this dispute.
Jason, one last point. I don't understand. If Tom didn't want any heat, I was thinking about this. Why didn't he just say I'm going through mental health struggles? This way, nobody can question you. If he just would have said, hey, guys, I'm going through then he would have been courageous when he comes back. Now this guy's arguing with the old lady. He's got to take all this stuff. Again, Tom, next time you and Giselle have an issue, pull out the mental health card. It works every single time. Trust me. Just saying.
All right, because Steve has hijacked this show, we've talked about Brittany Griner, now we've talked about Giselle Bundchen and Tom Brady. I'm gonna throw a little bit of a curveball here, guys. I'm gonna take care of some business. I want to talk about my good friends at Crowd Health. and then we'll come back and continue the football conversation. What if you could have your health care put back in your hands instead of being sold to the highest bidder? Politicians, big pharma, and health insurance companies make enormous profits at the expense of your health. That's why Crowd Health works. It's not health insurance. You can see any doctor you want. You pay the first $500 and submit any bills from there. The Crowd Health community takes care of the rest. No doctor networks, no huge premiums or deductibles. Best of all, no surprises. This is a game changer in the community healthcare industry. You just pay one low monthly total. It's less than $200 a month for most people. Stop paying health insurance companies your hard-earned dollars. Go to joincrowdhealth.com now and experience freedom from health insurance. Right now, you can get your first 6 months for just $99 per month. That's almost 50% off the normal price and a lot less than a high deductible healthcare plan. Just go to joincrowdhealth.com. Use my promo code FEARLESS at sign up. That's joincrowdhealth.com, promo code FEARLESS. Crowd Health is not health insurance. It's a totally different way of paying for health care. Terms and conditions apply. This is a great option for those of you guys that like independence and control. Joincrowdhealth.com. All right, let's go back to football. Steve, I want to know if you find this interesting as I do. Listen to these three names that are not on NFL rosters right now. Odell Beckham Jr., Cam Newton, and Antonio Brown. And so if we rolled the clock back 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and said, you know what, 2022 opening day rosters, OBJ, Cam Newton, and Antonio Brown would all be free agents, I would actually go, that's interesting, that's fascinating. I wouldn't be upset by it. I would be like, hey, guys that are distractions, guys that don't embrace the right team-oriented values, eventually pay a price. And so OBJ obviously is not on a roster primarily because of his knee injury and health issue. And he's allegedly has several teams in the running for him. But if OBJ's reputation wasn't as tarnished as it is, he would be on someone's roster under some huge contract, and he would be rehabbing while getting paid from that organization. So, yes, it's health related. That's why he's not on a team to some degree, but it's also attitude and behavior related, why no one has showered him with a huge contract and has him rehabilitating on their dime. Cam Newton obviously played his way out of the league. He's certainly worthy of being someone's backup quarterback, but people don't want to deal with the baggage. People don't want to deal with the persona that Cam created about himself. They don't want other guys in the locker room thinking he should be our starting quarterback. They don't want the persona of a guy that carries himself like he's a franchise quarterback when right now he has no more to offer the team than being a backup. And clearly, Antonio Brown has pissed away his NFL career. Yes, he's 34 and he's older and long in the tooth, but he certainly has the talent to be on an NFL roster, but he's crazy and teams don't want to be associated with him. But I think I can put all three of these guys in the same category and saying there is a price for bad behavior and for not embracing a true team building mentality. They're all paying that price to different degrees. Obviously, Antonio Brown and Cam Newton to a worse degree than OBJ. But you know, there is a price to being a malcontent and a clown.
I think much of that is true, and they're also, I think, all three are probably close to 30 or well above it. And 30, that is like the expiration date with milk that was 5 days ago. Generally, the NFL just throws that out. They pour it right into the sink. Let me defend OBJ a little bit, though. I think his situation is a little bit different. I think you're being a tad harsh on him. OBJ last year, I believe that his reputation was at an all-time low as his run with Cleveland came to this really ignominious finish. But to give him credit, over time, he became a very effective bookend to Cooper Kupp. And if you actually look at the playoff run or the last quarter of that season, OBJ played well. He was not a malcontent. He fit in well. Sean McVay started to actually feature him a little bit as the secondary receiver. And let's go back to that Super Bowl at SoFi. OBJ was having a really nice game before he blew out his knee on that crossing route. So, look, as soon as he gets a clean bill of health, and I haven't really kept up on it, he will find his way in the National Football League because he showed that he can be a team player. He can put his own goals behind that of the team, and he's still effective. The other two guys are gonorrhea and syphilis. Just get them out of here. I mean, honestly, I wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. Now, to be fair to AB, it looks to me like he has completely moved on from football, and good for him. He's doing concerts. He's making up dances. Not exactly the Roger Rabbit or Cabbage Patch, just my own opinion. But it looks like he's found the next step of his career. I do feel a little bit of sympathy for Cam because I get the sense that he still wants to play football, but he's like that aging diva who's lost her looks, put on 20 pounds, and has never really grasped middle age, that if you're going to be a backup quarterback, you have to be a team player, you have to be quiet, and you have to fit in. So to wrap this thing up, I would say that OBJ, again, he's the common cold or the flu. He'll heal up. He'll be healthy. And the other two guys, gonorrhea or syphilis, don't want anything to do with them. Totally different situations.
Wow, he basically, Shamika, let me translate that into something that maybe is more accessible to you. He called Cam Newton a side chick, and that he's got to get used to being a side chick. And Cam's mentality is not to be a side chick.
No.
Cam was like, because again, you know you got the wrong side chick when she wants to stick her head out your car window like a dog.
Right. Snap pictures of you while you're sleeping.
And that's Cam. And so I agree with that. Only thing, let me push back a tiny bit on OBJ, Steve. He got jailhouse religion. He got the Browns got tired of him. Yeah, and so last year the Rams had him backed into a corner. His reputation was tarnished, and so he needed to be on his best behavior last year, and he was. But there are smart people around the league that's like, oh, I'm not fitting, and OBJ I think is 29. I'm not fitting to give OBJ a monster contract with guaranteed money, because once he's free from that prison, he's going to be OBJ again. And so you're right, last year, backed into a corner, he behaved himself. That won't last, and I think a lot of people in the NFL know that, and that's why there's only just a handful of teams, and they're Super Bowl contending type teams, that have an interest in him for the right price. If there was somebody out there willing to give OBJ, $20 million a year or whatever, he would be on a team and he wouldn't care whether they're a Super Bowl contender or not. I just think he's got jailhouse religion.
Okay, well, you know what? Okay, about Abdullah Muhammad Beckham, you may have a point, but perhaps, you know what? I'll agree with you in this sense. Maybe he's most effective now as a really talented second receiver. Perhaps his days as the primary wide receiver one, they might be over. And again, you saw how effective he was as Cooper Kupp was deployed all over the field. He was the primary guy. He's the one that Stafford really trusted. But if you're willing to be that second banana, with the way teams throw the ball now, a second receiver can get 75 to 80 grabs because guys like Cooper are getting 100 plus. Going back to your analogy of Cam, maybe Cam was that wife, right, who was the homecoming queen that married the homecoming king in Carolina, had a great marriage, but then they got divorced. And then all of a sudden at age 50, it's sad. They don't spend time with their grandkids. They start a TikTok and an OnlyFans account. Maybe that's what Cam is. How about that? I think it's more than the side piece thing, I get it. But isn't he that 45-year-old, again, that starts the OnlyFans? Maybe that's a more apt comparison.
I can't go there with Cam only because Cam is one of my favorite players to watch. I was always rooting for him, even go back to his days at Auburn. Yeah, and so I don't want to beat up on him too hard. I was always on the right. Cut that hair, man. Quit trying to put on the fashion show. Just play football. He's gonna live with those regrets. That guy had Hall of Fame talent, and he won't get a whiff of the Hall of Fame because he jacked it up. But overall, Cam's well-intentioned, but he's clueless, and he has no excuse because he's got great parents. He has no excuse. The talent is what led him astray. Finally, let's talk about one last quarterback because that's all we really do in the NFL is talk about quarterbacks. Lamar Jackson has a contract deadline for Friday, and I think he's going into his 5th year, and most of these guys get their new. Kyler Murray got his new contract after 3 years. Certainly Lamar Jackson, after 4 years, is expecting to have it rained on him, and he probably wants similar money to all these other guys that are getting around $50 million a year. It seems like Baltimore is a teeny bit reluctant. What do you think happens here with Lamar Jackson? Do the Ravens meet the deadline? Does Lamar Jackson play on Sunday if they don't meet the deadline?
Well, this is the problem with being Lee Steinberg Jackson when he represents himself. I thought it was real interesting that a reporter asked him a day or two ago, hey, what's going on with your contract negotiations? He goes, oh, I don't know. You'd have to ask our GM. I'm like, Lamar, you're your own agent. If you don't know, nobody does. See, here's the issue. Baltimore has, I believe, a catch-22. With Lamar's particular style of play, physical erosion is going to hit him differently because he's very reliant on his legs. That doesn't mean that he's not a great passer or that he can't pass, but we know that there are certain things he doesn't do well. But the other thing is with Baltimore, are you sure that you can get someone better? And how long will that take? I mean, I don't know of a quarterback. Well, I'll say this. There's about 5 or 6 quarterbacks that are closely tied to their teams that when you think of Kansas City, you immediately think of Mahomes. When you think of the Bills, you immediately think of Josh Allen. When I think of the Baltimore Ravens, I think of Lamar Jackson. I really believe he actually might be the second most popular Baltimore Raven of all time behind the great Ray Lewis. So the organization might feel a lot of pressure, even if the play may not dictate this $500 million type of contract that other quarterbacks have gotten, to say, you know what, we have to do this or we're going to lose the fan base. Now, what I don't like is when you represent yourself, you have to put on edicts like, well, as soon as the season starts, we're cutting it off. Jason, isn't that why you have an agent? So that guy can go in there behind closed doors and during the season and give you a peace of mind moving forward?
It is. Lamar's in a tough spot, though, because he plays the position so physically. Injury is always a risk on virtually every snap. He goes out there and gets hurt. That could really hurt his contract value, even more so. Remember, Dak got hurt in a contract dispute with his ankle and still got his money because Dak's primary strength is throwing the ball. Lamar's primary strength is still the threat of running, which makes his passing even better. He gets some sort of leg injury, he becomes less of a running threat. He's got less value. So Lamar's in a very tricky situation. My problem with him being his own agent is at his age, and I love Lamar Jackson, but it's hard to get your ego out of the way at his age. And that when you start representing yourself and you're having those conversations with people and you see yourself, because trust me, Lamar Jackson sees himself as the best player in the NFL. And so that means he wants the most money, or he wants to be right there with everybody else. And there may be an agent that could come in, and now he's dependent on the team to come in and come up with some kind of contract number they can put out to the press that may be some smoke and mirrors that protect your ego and create the appearance, oh yeah, he's the highest paid quarterback on paper and we can put this out there. And Lamar may not have an agent who's manipulating the deal in that way that protects Lamar's ego, allows the deal to get done, spins everything out in the media the way that he wants, because that's really the value that particularly these agents at CAA and these other firms, they make sure they have such control over the sports media, they spin these contract numbers out any way they want them spun out. Lamar doesn't have that. You know, he's going to be relying on his football team to spin this story the way that he wants. And as the vaccine mandates and all the pressure they put on, waiting on these NFL teams to protect the players or to do what's in the best interest of the players, good luck with that.
Yeah. And Jason, one last note. Last year, let's be fair, when he was healthy, the Ravens were right in the playoff thick, just as they are most of the years. It's a very stable franchise. But the league had begun to catch up to that style of offense. And I've talked about this before. I've seen some videos. The league understood if you bring a zero blitz package and you bring 5 defensive rushers and you plug every gap, their quick passing game has to be better. And this is where Lamar has to be a more efficient quarterback, where it becomes snap, 1, 2, 3, ball out. Can't play hero ball every single play. And I think that's going to be a real interesting development, is to see, have the Ravens figured out the zero blitz, and do they have wide receivers that can win one-on-one quick matchups, and does the ball get out of Lamar's hands quickly enough to make the game easier? Because you look at every other quarterback, Jason, just study it, there's at least 15 times a game where the ball is 1, 2, 3, bang, it's out. The game is really easy. For Lamar, it's about, you got to maybe Fran Tarkenton, you got to scramble, you got to go through a slalom of defenders, and then make magic happen. It's a very, very difficult style to sustain over the long haul.
Before we get to this approval rating on Josh Allen, give me your Super Bowl pick very quickly.
Yeah, very simple. I think the Bills have the best roster. I think they should have been there last year. I'm going to pick the Bills. And believe it or not, NFC is very weak. I think the Rams, with the addition of Bobby Wagner, if they still have great years left with Matt Stafford and Aaron Donald, I think tonight will be a preview of what we see in February.
I'm going to pick the Chiefs. Just
what?
Who I really want to pick, but I don't have the courage to do. I don't have the courage to make the pick that I want to make. I want to pick the Chargers, but I can't pick an AFC West team. I don't want to piss off people in Kansas City. I like Justin Herbert
You chicken.
a lot, and so I guess I've just made 2 picks because now I can brag and say, see, I told you the Chargers. And the Chargers probably won't even make the playoffs, but anyway, that's what I think. Let's get to our approval rating. All right, Josh Allen, we both love him. Shamika likes him. We love him. Job performance. He was not the MVP last year. He was in the race for quite some time, but I'm going to give him a 22 in job performance. You're way. I'm looking at your score. You got him damn near perfect. The guy wasn't MVP. How's he gonna be at 24?
There's only one MVP. But if you look at his playoff performance, from that flawless performance against New England and that legendary stuff he did at Arrowhead, that was beyond his control when they blew that lead, that's the next step. If he would have won the MVP or the Super Bowl, I would have given him the 25, but you should just be glad that I have a rating that doesn't end in a 0 or a 5. There, are you happy?
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I'm glad your math skills are improving. That's the benefit of being on this show. Character, I'll give him a 19. He got a little jam with his teammates about something that I can't remember right
Did he
now.
drop
There
the
was
N-word on a rap lyric on a tweet years ago? Was that the thing?
yeah, something like that. Something like that. Which
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold that against him. But I gave him a 19 in character.
I gave him a 21 because it seems to me like he has really strong worth ethic. Remember, when coming out of Wyoming, they say he could throw it a country mile, but he couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. He's that rare quarterback, Jason, who's actually become a more accurate passer. Word is you're not allowed or even it's not even possible to improve that. He actually has. So I give him a 21.
Yeah, you know what? He's kind of like, he's the ultimate Randall Cunningham at this point. Not quite the runner Randall was, but a better passer than Randall probably ever thought of being. Authenticity, I think he's pretty authentic. Good old boy from Wyoming or wherever he's from. Stuck to his. I gave him a 21 in authenticity.
Went to school in Wyoming. I think he actually grew up in a rural area of California, if I'm not mistaken. But he seems to be the type of guy you could trust with the hundreds of millions of dollars. Great face of the franchise. He's a real leader. Seems to be a really earnest individual, so I gave him a 20.
It factor, one of the most exciting players in the league. Kind of can't miss TV. I gave him, but he's not Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers. So I gave him a 17 in it factor.
It's hard to have the it factor when you're in Buffalo, which some people call the Toronto of New York. Until he wins a Super Bowl, I got to make him a 15 because I don't think he has that national profile as a transcendent figure like a Peyton Manning or like a Tom Brady. But overall, it's a 15 with the chance to grow.
Steve, I think this is the first time we're in total agreement. We both have him at an 80, a smoke show. Smoke show, kind of like Shamika Michelle, smoke show. In honor, we gave, you're the Josh Allen of this show, Shamika.
Yes.
The MVP favorite. All right, thank you, Steve. Great job. Who was among the first people to challenge the narrative in the BYU Duke volleyball case? It wasn't the mainstream media. Who brought you the facts about Serena Williams' place in tennis history? Wasn't ESPN. It was Fearless. It was me. If you've watched this show long enough, you know I do not back down to the mob. I start the conversations that the rest of the media are afraid to discuss, and we do it with integrity and honesty. We know there is one thing that has no place on big tech social media platforms: the truth. How many times have voices like Steven Crowder been punished by big tech for putting a toe across their line? That's why I'm on BlazeTV. It's the platform for free speech-loving Americans where we can have the conversations not allowed by Silicon Valley overlords. So if or when there's retaliation, I'll still be on BlazeTV doing exactly what I do here, being fearless. If you're not yet a subscriber, now's a great time to become one. Use the promo code FEARLESS20 for $20 off your first year of BlazeTV. It's just not me there. It's Steven Crowder. It's Glenn Beck. It's Steve Dace, and so many more. Good men and good women. Did I even mention Allie Beth Stuckey, my favorite? We're all fighting the good fight. Join today. Let's make sure we continue building the Fearless Army. Make sure we can support Blaze and the people supporting the Fearless Army, the people that believe in what we believe in. Log on to blazetv.com and use the promo code FEARLESS20 for $20 off your first year. Be fearless, join Blaze TV, be a good soldier. It's the small things you can do that will make a difference. Support Blaze TV. All right, you can email me and us at fearless@theblaze.com. Delano Squires joins us next. When trying to make sense of the criminal violence ravaging Memphis, it's important to recognize that culture kills, not color. The fixation on color stands in the way of addressing the cultural rot that has turned the home of the blues into Satan's house of horror. Memphis is America's most dangerous city. Each day brings new news of the chaos and anarchy terrorizing the birthplace of rock and roll. Wednesday, a teenage black boy streamed on Facebook Live his day-long shooting spree. Ezekiel Kelly's murderous rampage caused Memphis residents to shelter in place as law enforcement hunted the deranged 19-year-old. Shooting out the window of 2 separate moving cars, Kelly killed 4 people and wounded 3 others in a joyride that started at 1 a.m. and ended in the early evening with his arrest. Kelly is just the latest Memphis killer to make national news. A week ago, Cleotha Abston, a 38-year-old black man, abducted, raped, and murdered a school teacher out on an early morning jog. In mid-July, a trio of Latino boys aged 15 to 20 murdered a 52-year-old female pastor during a carjacking. In mid-August, 32-year-old Tiffany Wright, a black woman, shot and killed a 60-year-old political activist in a dispute over money. The recent high-profile spate of violence will make Memphis a national talking point. Memphis is the new Chicago, the new Baltimore, the new Philadelphia, the new Compton, the new name the major city plagued by violent crime. The conversation will be justifiably framed as a black problem or a problem for people of color. Justifiable is not the same as accurate. Culture kills, not color. Black people have embraced a culture of death. Virtually every day on social media, someone accuses me of unfairly criticizing black people. I allegedly hate myself and other black people because I constantly criticize black influencers who advocate for black people by policing the behavior and culture of white people. Yesterday, after publishing my column about why South Carolina basketball coach Don Staley should fear Memphis far more than Provo, Utah, a man purporting to be a Christian minister complained that I was anti the black agenda. Staley canceled South Carolina's games against Brigham Young University because a BYU fan allegedly yelled a racial slur at a Duke volleyball player. I argued that Staley's players would be far more in danger in Memphis in 2023 than in Provo, Utah at any time. I don't hate myself or black people. I hate the culture black people have embraced. I'm critical of the high-profile advocates of the progressive, secular, hedonistic, and materialistic culture that currently defines black culture. They have a worldview that directly opposes my biblical worldview. They believe the highest form of humanity is victimhood. I reject that. With Jesus on my side, I cannot fail. My ultimate victory is assured. They believe that white people control the destiny of black people. I reject that too. They believe in the attainment of financial wealth by any means necessary. I don't. They believe the improvement of white people improves black people. I believe my improvement improves me. I could go on and on. Bottom line, the culture is satanic. Its wicked intent and manifestation can be most easily seen in commercial hip-hop music. Memphis's importance to the culture elevated a year ago when a relatively unknown rapper, Young Dolph, was murdered. Corporate media and the other satanic co-conspirators all pretended that Young Dolph was young Elvis Presley. Young Dolph was nothing more than a local Memphis rapper who promoted a satanic worldview. His successor is his cousin, Jay Fizzle, a 28-year-old deadbeat with more than 20 kids. Fizzle recently sat down for an interview with at least 15 of his baby mamas. He wants to do a TV show about his kids and their mothers. Take a look for yourself.
So 14 kids. I think you had 10 last time he was on here.
14 plus.
14 plus?
Yeah.
I take, you ain't done, is you?
That's half good.
Hey, look. I'm gonna be real. You wanna be real?
Come on, be real with us.
Nah, I ain't done. I ain't done. I told you I print this shit, so it's really about, as long as you take care of it, it's all good. So that don't even matter, you feel me? I got the mamas and the babies, you feel me? So all of them got different babies. All of them got different baby mamas. I got all of them too, you feel me? I'm on some boss shit, you feel me? I told you I'm printing this shit, for real.
That's a lot of mouths to feed, bro.
I ain't tripping, I'm printing this shit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna show you one. You gotta join Illuminati. Want me to show you?
Yeah.
You join Illuminati, I got you.
Come on.
Just sign your soul to me, I got you.
If you want to understand what's the matter with Memphis, watch the entire Jay Fizzle interview on YouTube. If you want to understand why I call the culture satanic, watch the entire Jay Fizzle interview. Baby mama culture produces 19-year-olds who live stream their killing sprees. The destruction of family destroys all morals, norms, and order. Culture kills, not color. I will never apologize for hating the culture that celebrates, tolerates, and proliferates a mindset that teaches black people to see themselves as victims dependent on white guilt and criminals. Our fixation on color prevents us from examining the culture we've adopted or been assigned. Last week, the Tennessee Titans announced a partnership with the Memphis rap group 3 6 Mafia. The NFL franchise hired DJ Paul and Juicy J to write a theme song for the organization. This is an example of the NFL being inclusive and reaching out to the black community. Take a look.
We on kick return or whatever, they always play like some turned up music, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm thinking, because that's something that really the crowds really get into, because they're like, shoot, it's about to, you know what I'm saying, the game about to pop off. So
yeah, we running hoop, like you said, hoop.
Like hoop, like that, like somebody like that.
Like you said, if you got that hoop, boom, so then the crowd know, like, bro, it's time to turn up.
Who running? Who running? Who running? Who running?
I like that.
These boys ain't running. With y'all mouth, cause the first hater step the first. Hater get tossed. These boys ain't running. With y'all.
I mean, I think that's something to be dope.
That's dope. Yep.
I think that'll be real fire.
3 6 Mafia is a clever way of saying 666, the number that signifies the devil, the Antichrist. It's taken from the book of Revelations, chapter 13, verse 18. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 613 The evil is hiding in plain sight. Look at the NFL's choice in Super Bowl halftime entertainment last year. Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Eminem. The most powerful force in popular culture, the NFL, which is the #1 TV show on 5 different TV networks. The NFL believes the best way to show affection towards black people is by embracing a musical genre that celebrates a satanic worldview. The culture is killing us. It's not white people or black people killing us. It's the culture we've chosen to embrace. I'm going to continue to objecting to this culture. I'm going to continue criticizing the black and white people who promote this death culture. If that makes me a sellout, consider me bought and sold. That's my fire for today. I'm just sad even talking about this. When I wrote about it this morning, I was sad. When I looked at that video of Jay Fizzle with all his baby mamas, bragging about having 22 kids, talking about let's do a TV show with a guy that has 30 kids. And there's no objection. There's no real objection to this. And then we look at Memphis and I see a 19-year-old kid videotaping himself driving around Memphis, shooting and killing people. When you destroy the family, you're destroying everything. And that's what we've done. We can't sit around and laugh about a man that has 22 kids and 15, 16 baby mamas, and he's doing interviews and it's being celebrated. We talked about Nick Cannon last week. We talked about it several times on this show. But it's like this whole, when Black Lives Matter and their whole, we're going to destroy the nuclear family. This is satanic. And again, I'm not saying that loosely. I'm saying it's in complete objection to God's design, and we're wondering why our fruit is so bad? Why our kids are running wild in the street, videotaping themselves, killing people on Facebook Live? And we want to talk about Provo, Utah? And we want to demonize little Mormon kids in Provo, Utah? As if they're the problem? And what happened to Rachel Richardson is the problem? And again, I don't believe it happened, but even if it did, it ain't the problem. An ignorant white or black person calling me the N-word ain't the problem. That man sitting on camera with 15, 16, 17 baby mamas, that's the problem. We need to address it. This culture that has embraced it and celebrated it, that's the problem. I say this in all, I don't personally know any white people that have a problem with black people over skin color. I really don't. I used to when I was younger, but in 2022, I don't, that's not the problem. And I certainly don't have a problem with my skin color or people that look like me. I have a problem with people that embrace a culture that is killing us. That's the problem. Shamika, we're going to bring Delano into this discussion. Delano, I appreciate you waiting patiently. I had to get a few things off my chest, but Shamika, I'm going to start with you ladies first. When you heard yesterday about 19-year-old black kid filming himself, driving around, shooting people in Memphis, what was your first thought, reaction?
There's a saying that I used to hear growing up, and that was, and flies I do despise. And I am sick of us as black people acting as if we don't see what's happening. And when I look at 3 6 Mafia and I think of people like Snoop and Dr. Dre, these are older people. This is my generation. Once you get to a certain age, you have a responsibility to start teaching those that are younger than you the right way to go. It doesn't matter that I used to be a stripper. I don't go out here and advocate for young girls like, hey, make that money, girl. No. I try to teach them a better way from the way that I took. And so I think it's irresponsible when black people sit around and act as if they don't see it, number one. They want to promote the same lifestyle that they live, that you made it out. These kids are not making it out. They are dying every day. And so if you are irresponsible and not teaching the right thing, what we need to do as black people, instead of people saying, oh, you know, you hate yourself or you hate black people, we should hate the foolishness. We should start shaming them and making them the laughing stock. Instead of putting them on TV and having these interviews, we should be shaming them to oblivion, that they feel like they don't even want to come out with this type of lifestyle. If you have 22 kids out of wedlock with all of these baby mamas, you should feel ashamed that you wouldn't even mention that stuff. I can remember growing up when young girls would get pregnant, my high school would ship them off to a different school. When you saw that this girl was missing, you knew that she was knocked up. It wasn't celebrated. We weren't throwing baby showers at the school. We weren't looking for her to bring the child up to the school. we need to bring shaming back, because we have started accepting all of this behavior that is killing us. And we need to start ridiculing these people, no matter the age, and saying no more, because we see what's happening and it's not okay. It's ridiculous that a person would feel like, let me go on Facebook Live to do something that is not only illegal, it's shameful, it's disgusting, and people get celebrated for stupidity. It's time out for that.
Delano, I want you to join the discussion. And just, Memphis is being plagued by a series of heinous crimes. The city, I believe, is 65% black. I don't think you can blame what's going on in Memphis on white people. When you saw the events of yesterday, what thoughts ran through your mind?
There were a lot of thoughts, Jason. I think I saw one image of the shooter, or alleged shooter, right? I'm just keep myself out of legal trouble, where he had like a semicircle of dollars and then 2 guns that were so clearly he staged this picture, and I'm assuming it's to show people, look, I keep a gun on me and I keep money on me. And those are the things that, to your point back to the quote unquote the culture, right? Because I think we would all agree that we don't want to say that every individual action of any particular black person is a reflection on all black people, right? So I don't take that position. But when you talk about culture, you're talking about the beliefs, the behaviors, the norms, the values, things that are considered normal and accepted within a defined group of people. And within sort of the broader black culture, to your point, like the gangster rap stuff, the music, all of those values have become accepted. And I've even debated, and this is one area in which, I mean, I know the black left, I know how they get down, but I am often disappointed by black conservatives who will defend the quote unquote culture, because they'll say, oh, look, hip hop is how, these guys work the capitalist system, going back to what y'all were talking about last week with Jay-Z, and they built wealth, and as soon as they built wealth, oh, look, now you want to change the rules of the game. No, it's not that. It's not that at all. It's not that I'm upset that black people get money. I'm upset that some black people have chosen to get rich by pushing the destruction of a ton of other black people, right? And that's the problem. In the same way, everybody I knew growing up, whether you were from Philly or New York or DC or Atlanta, wherever, we would all have the same stories. Why they put all the greasy chicken shacks in the hood? Why they put the liquor stores in the hood? Why they promote cigarettes in the hood? Everything that they, the white man, right, is doing is promoting death in our culture. Until it comes to music and particularly hip hop, then it's, oh, well, it's making some people some money. They give back to their neighborhoods. And I've said this before, our culture has played the harlot for way too long and way too cheap. And we use this term sellout in completely the wrong way. So I agree 100% with Shamika. I have one, I would change what she said just so slightly. It's not that we don't have shame, we just shame all the wrong things. Because all three of us on a daily basis get bombarded by people who say, you a coon, you a Tom, you a sellout, you a pick me, you playing up for white people. So they're trying to use shame to control our behavior. They want us to shut up. But then they turn around and let in all of the garbage, the nonsense, things that people would never push on their own kids. And that's how, and I look at this often as a father. Jason, particularly when my kids were young, if I had any question as to whether the milk I was about to give them was spoiled, right, I would open up the bottle, either smell it myself, and if I really wasn't sure, I pour out a little bit and I'll taste it before I give it to my kids. Now, I did this the other day, and I had a little batch of some sour milk, and I spit it out into the sink, because I would never give anything to my children that I would not consume myself, because I care for them and I love them. But the people who claim to speak for black folk, have no problem pushing stuff on us that they know is complete garbage, because even the artists themselves, they talk about gangbanging, but they send their kids to private schools. They talk about the trap house, but they live in gated communities. And they've been doing this for well over a generation. And I do think it's about time that we get much more serious about shaming them into stopping.
So when I looked at the video of the Jay Fizzle guy, surrounded, I counted 17 women, but I went conservative and said 15 just in case I miscounted. You know, it's I only got so many hands and feet. But I counted, when I looked at that video and thought, it's not just him, it's the 17 women that would put themselves in this position to be videotaped. He seems to be smoking a blunt. Half the women seem to be smoking a blunt or passing a blunt. And so when I looked at him, and then I thought, well, he got 15 to 17 women to stand up here with him and promote this. This is when I go, well, hold on. Who's the majority? Us or them? That's what I'm questioning. And other people that watch this video that maybe live in communities or have social circles that don't include black people, when they look at that video, they're gonna say, there's 17 women that's willing to go on camera with this dude as he brags about having all these kids, and they will perhaps inaccurately, but in my mind, again, I'll go justifiably conclude, well, this must be what the majority of black people think is okay.
Yeah. All I see when I look at that is a bunch of HPV, just a bunch of bacterial vaginosis and yeast infections in one video. Because I can imagine he's probably still going between all of the women that they would even be willing to get up there and promote his foolishness. It's disgusting. We have no values as women, but I think we can see that because we don't even require a man to give us his last name anymore before having his children. So it's like, are you saying, okay, he's good enough for the child, but he's not good enough for you? Like, what is the message that we're sending to these kids? And again, you know, a man that has this many children is not giving them anything of value to actually help them become productive citizens. So we already know these children are at school, cutting the food, mama don't have time, mama high, daddy is somewhere with some other woman. They're gonna be menaces to society already. And I think when you bring a child into this world, when you conceive a child, knowing that you aren't ready to be the best parent you can be, you're already a bad parent. So there's a video of bad parents.
So Delano, and I want to be fair here, and I don't want to take cheap shots, but I am going to just, because I really want to understand, and maybe I'll text or call Roland Martin or someone like this myself and just ask, when a Roland Martin or any of these, Joy Reid or Jamel Hill or whoever these the Eli Mistel, when they see this video, what do they think? What excuse, rationalization do they come up with and say, nah, I'm not gonna talk about this. This isn't the problem. White people in Utah or white people calling us names, that's the problem. What leaps in logic, or is it just money that makes them say, nah, I'm not gonna address that. I'm paid to talk about white people and the names they call us in the communities where we don't even live or exist. What are they doing? What mental leaps? What's going on in their heads?
I think there's a couple things that they'll do. One, their editorial directions are such that they don't go looking for these stories. So I think when they come across these stories, and I could just see, Roland Martin sassing about this and saying, oh, this fool crazy, you know what I mean? And sort of doing his neck. And he'll just write it off as a fringe example of something. I don't think he's going to draw that broader connection between, from this guy's actions to the culture, quote unquote. And when I say the culture in this context, I mean the fact that 7 out of 10 black children are born to unwed parents, and that has exploded over since the mid '60s when it was 1 out of 4. So I don't think he's going to make that larger connection. But to the extent that you get these people, if you pin them down, or if it's a story that's so big that they can't get around it, what they'll often do is say, even whether it's the Memphis shooter or this rap guy, they'll say even their behavior itself is a byproduct of systemic racism and white supremacy. They'll say it's redlining that restricted black people's ability to generate wealth. They'll say, substandard schools, removing, resources from our public schools. They'll use whatever excuse they can. They'll say the disappearance of jobs and mass incarceration. That's another popular one. So they will come up with all these excuses because to them, white people are the only people in this country who truly have agency. Black people are passive recipients of the actions that white people take. But we as a larger body can't do anything for ourselves. So that's why you rarely hear them nowadays talk about individual responsibility or agency. They don't use words like that because to them, human behavior is impacted most by systemic forces, and they see white people as being in control of all of our systems and institutions in this country.
So you mentioned like wealth, education, jobs, mass incarceration, things like that. But there is money is not directly connected to morality.
No.
And I say that to say that when I was poor, and take my grandmother, who's huge influence on me, particularly spirit. This woman was never wealthy, ever. Lived in the hood, was never wealthy. She's the most moral person I know. And I'm gonna take it away from religion and just go to my father, who was not a believer, but he was a very moral person. And he had money, he was poor, he rode the roller coaster, but he was a moral person. And I say that because unlike me, my father was a really good looking man. Women loved my father, and unbelievably immaculate dresser. And he liked women a lot. He only had 2 kids. The 2 kids he had with my mama, who he was married to, he had the discipline not to have, and he had access. Women loved my father, and my father loved women, but he had a morality to him, like kids is really for marriage, and I did that with Joyce, and we had kids, the marriage didn't work out. He could find a condom. It's I mean, he had, and again, morality isn't a money thing. It's a choice, and this culture is so immoral, and we're ignoring it, and I don't understand the ramifications of this immorality, of baby mama culture, is so just right in front of our faces. Kids don't respect us. Kids are, more violent towards us than anybody else. Neighborhoods in total disarray. I don't get it. And then we get accused of, we sold out, and I get accused for coming on this show and you know, LeBron James and some of these other guys that I think are on board with this culture, I am hypercritical of, and I'm never going to apologize to that. Their worldview opposes my worldview, and I think their worldview is creating more Jay Fizzles, and I'm trying to call that out and point it out to people. It's like, it's the culture, man. It's not our skin color. It's not white people's skin color. It's the culture we've chosen to adopt, and I keep trying to showcase people on this show that have a different culture that they have bought into, a Christian culture. Delano got a black wife and 3 kids, and they're doing very well. Dave Shannon got a black wife and 7 kids, and they're doing very well. Virgil Walker, black wife, 3 or 4 kids, doing very well. Shamika had a black husband, 3 kids, kids are doing well. This ain't color, it's a culture. Right. It's what do you embrace? That's the only message we're trying to get across on this show. And
I reject the notion that it has something to do with money for the simple fact that my mother had me at 15. She never gave me an excuse to go to school and cut up because we didn't have money. I can remember my grandmother putting a plate of macaroni and cheese and green beans in front of us and me saying, "Where's the meat?" And my grandmother saying, "The cheese is the meat," because we were having hard times. But that didn't mean that we got to go out there and act any kind of way. I had friends who grew up in the projects. My friend had a piano in the projects. Now I know people in those same projects that have stripper poles. It's about the culture. We've changed. You're in the same economic state as my friend and her grandmother, but she was able to give my friend something better, morals and values, a different life. And it had nothing, like you said, to do with money. And so this idea, of course, we don't have the generational wealth that, you know, maybe some white people have, but to make that make that an excuse as to why we act the way that we do now, no, that's not an excuse. It's not a good one.
Yeah, and there's a couple things that come to mind when we talk about this. I think one of the big reasons we are where we are is because sort of mainstream black culture has become a lot less religious. And when I say religious, I'm not saying people don't go to church, even though that's becoming more the norm, particularly for younger generations. But the church is oftentimes not where people go to get their sense of moral formation. The black church, in many respects, has become basically the NAACP with preachers, right? It's all about social justice because the ministers think that the worst type of oppression is you know, economic inequality and not oppression as it relates to the bondages of sin. So as much as we talk about the culture and our ancestors, we have given up on the faith of our ancestors, and even our churches have been infiltrated by Marxist thinking, right? It's all about class conflict and power structures and materialism. And when you think like that, when you think that a person's actions are guided by how much money they have in their pocket, you come up with totally different solutions to the problems, you know, that we're talking about. And so I agree with both of y'all. And I've asked people before, black, liberal, and conservative, I said, if money was the issue, why is it that so many black athletes and rappers catch major charges, I mean on violent crimes, after they get their big paydays, right? Nobody really wants to give me an answer to that because they would have to admit, it's like these guys some of them have all the money in the world. And I could go through the list of rappers who have gotten arrested on gun charges, assaults, murder charges, after they got their big payday. Because this is about culture, and we're a people that talk about, oh, you got to know your history and stuff. And I'm just like, I agree with that. But can we first start by making sure that every child knows who their father is? But before we teach who Mansa Musa was, can we start in the home? And what happens when you're disconnected from your family and from your father and your roots and your heritage is that, and Shamika was talking about this yesterday, you have no sense of honor when it comes to your family name, right? There were certain things, if me and my friends was cutting up, there's certain things we did not do because he said, you know what, we don't want to be a bad reflection on our parents. And my parents drilled that into me. They sent me to Catholic school for 2 years. I did well academically. It was not a good social environment for me. And they came to the school one time and they looked in my locker and I had penny loafers, if people are old enough to remember that. And the front of the loafer was sort of flapping like this because I run shoes into the ground. And my dad was like, how can you out there representing our family like this and that? And to this day, I may hear about that story because my parents took that stuff very, very seriously. But again, if you have no connection to anything and all of your behaviors are based on what white people tell their kids over family dinner, then you don't think like that. So I agree. We need to bring back shame as a prophylactic, as a preventative method. Once the woman got the baby's 6 years old. It don't make sense shaming her and say, oh, you know, where your baby father at? But before she has the child or before a guy impregnates 16 women, we should let it be known, right? You know, like how they used to have sundown towns in the South, and they say, look, if you're a black person, don't roll through there. We should have, you know, moral sort of havens where we say, look, if you come into this part of the black community, leave that garbage at the door. Don't come in here with this nonsense because we're not going to tolerate it. So if you think you're the type of man to impregnate 6 women and you're not married to any of them and you think that's a mark of success and how manly you are, we're going to help you feel some. If you don't feel shame, we're going to help you feel some shame. Say, look at this guy. What kind of man don't take care of his own kids? And we need to start doing that to people because right now we don't have that. And part of the reason we don't have it is because we don't have the space to disagree about big issues publicly. The left has chosen not to engage with us on certain issues, right? Sometimes we'll tag them, we'll ask them questions directly, and they just want to ignore it. I would love to see somebody, I'm thinking of like Tavis Smiley, who used to have the State of the Black Union, get a bunch of black folks together that have different views, and let's talk it out. And let's let the different worldviews battle with one another. We would see it as a fight between good and evil. They may see left and right. And let's have these conversations publicly to discuss where the larger black culture is going, the direction we're going. Because if we can't do that, as I've said before in the past on the show, then we're going to have a separation. If the cancer cannot be removed and it can't be, if it can't be treated, if it can't be shrunk so that it's no longer a threat to the body, it has to be excised. It has to be removed. Because if not, it's going to kill the entire body. So that may mean we say, you know what, I love you, you know, you're cool, we're cousins, whatever. But you can't come around my kids. Because when you come around my kids with your 17 baby mamas, now you make my teenage sons think that that's the right thing to do. And I'm not training them to be that type of man. So I think we are going to either get to the point where we have these debates, these arguments, vigorous arguments publicly, or we're going to have a great separation.
Delana, you've made this point before, but when I'm looking at those 17 women sitting around this Jay Fizzle, you've made the point about, you know, women just aren't the proper gatekeepers. And that's what the women that agreed to sit down in this interview and be seen in this environment, they're co-signing. They are promoting what this man has done. There's no shame. They're right there with him. Hey, I got one of his 22 babies. And so it's like for women to draw that line in the sand, that era is gone. And I wanted to make this point to any single mothers that are out there watching this show. And because I made the point about my father, but there's an even stronger point to be made about my mother, because me and my brother talked about this all the time as kids and as young adults, and we started talking about what the amazing things my mother did and the sacrifices she made. We call them sacrifices, but just the decisions she made. And one of the biggest ones, and it's the same one I'm giving my father credit for, I got to give my mother. My parent, I would think I was like 5 years old, and my brother was probably 8 years old when my parents got divorced. And so from 5 years old until age 17, I lived with my mother. My senior year of high school, she moved to Kansas City, and I went and lived with my father. And so for the next 12 years, me and my brother talked about it, and we still talk about it to this day. For those 12 years, I knew my mother to have 2 boyfriends over the course of 12 years. She only dated 2 guys. And so I would say for the first 3 years, it was a dude named Andy. Still remembering, big swole up, muscle dude, good guy, nice guy. And then we ended up, I don't know what happened to their relationship, but by the time we moved, she took a second job and moved. There was a dude named Joe Dickerson, very close to Joe's past now. But I would say for the next 5 to 6, or for the rest of the time, that's who I knew my mother to date.
Right. And
that was it. There was no other man ever brought to our house, ever came and picked my mother up. And I'll say, when my mother moved to Kansas City, and by the time I went off to college and the rest of my life, I don't know if my mother dated anybody.
Right.
I'm sure in Kansas City, I'm sure she did. Her kids were grown. I'm sure she had a great social life. I didn't meet none of them Negroes.
Right.
And
right.
And I'm just and now you can't go. These kids is meeting new boyfriends every 2 or 3 months.
That's true. And he's in and out the house, and he is the one scrambling all the eggs and drinking up all the Kool-Aid, just taking away from the children. And that's what women allow now. And
so literally, me and my brother, even as kids, we recognized it or as young kids, by the time we 12, 13, he's 15 years old, whatever, we would talk about like, hey, because we'd had other family members, I'm not gonna call names, or friends that, they mama had a new boyfriend, husband, or something, virtually every year.
Yep.
Yeah. And we knew Joe and Andy, and that's all I've known. So I'll go to my grave believing my mother slept with 3 men in her whole life. And I only got proof of one of them, and that's my father. Everything else is a mystery. I'm just assuming.
Right.
But that's what that's the kind of sacrifices mothers used to make for their kids. And now I'm looking at 17 women smoking weed, surrounded by an idiot.
Right.
And they all got children that are brothers and sisters. Can you imagine the confusion amongst those kids?
Yep.
And the disparate treatment and the jealousy and envy, and you wonder why we can't build bonds among each other. You got kids that grow up hating their brothers and sisters because of the different treatment from all these different baby daddies and this mama. It's
one of the things they tell you when you get divorced is to stabilize the children. And I think a lot of people are missing this. Whether you are divorced or never been married, they are not realizing that they have to stabilize the children. If you don't do that, everything is going to be chaotic, everything is going to be messed up, and you have to make sacrifices in order to make sure your kids feel stable and comfortable and safe. And that's just what has to take place. People often ask me, why do me and my children's father get along so well? Well, for one, I wanted to stabilize the children. It wasn't about the 2 of us. It was about making sure we continued to raise 3 daughters who were going to be healthy individuals, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. I had to make sure that I was one of these mothers that made it easy for him to be in their life. I can't stand when I hear people say, why didn't he fight harder? He shouldn't have to fight at all. If the children are your first priority, it's easy to get along with the person that you had kids with. The children come first, period. And so, I never wanted to have another man step in and try to take over and be the father. No, I can wait. I mean, I'm gonna be a lot older, but I've already had kids, so there's no reason for me to try to rush into another relationship. My days of having children are over. My eggs are powdered. even though I still release one every month. It's no fertilizing these things anymore. So I can wait until my kids are going off and they're grown and they want to, going off into their new lives. I don't have to have a man in and out. I'm not going to do that to my children because that's not what I want them to do in return.
Delano, I'm gonna give you the final say, but I want to add one little comment, and then you can take as long as you want. You can summarize the whole conversation. But to the parents out there, and I know most of you already know this, but there are people that don't. And these sacrifices I'm talking about, my mother made, sacrifice Shamika's talking about she's making. And again, I hate to even call them sacrifices, but just the decisions to do the right thing by your kids. It's like a 401k with a massive return. And I say that because my father's passed now, but my mother is still living. And if we raised my father from the dead, what he would tell you, and what my mother, if we called her right now, would tell you, is that me and my brother have done incredibly by them in terms of the way we have turned around and taken care of them. My father had health issues later in his life, and my brother broke his back taking care of my father. Broke his back. My mother, for the last maybe 20 years, she'll tell you, living her best life. Only thing to stop my mother is the damn COVID scamdemic. Other than that, at 82, 83, she's still going strong, living her best life because me and my brother will do anything for her. If we could raise my grandmother from the dead, she would tell you, oh my God, what Jason and Jim did for me. Unbelievable. And so I just want to inspire any of these parents out there that don't make the investment in your kids. It's going to pay off a lot better than one of these little nappy-headed Negroes sitting around smoking a blunt with his half dozen baby mamas, that boyfriend that you think is the end-all, be-all, or whatever. It ain't the 401k that investing in your kids are. Trust me, if you do right by them, even in this crazy culture we got right now, they will turn around and do right by you, and your last 20, 30 years in this life will be better than the first 50, 60. And it's an incredible investment, an incredible payoff. And it's why I beat myself up sitting around like, should have got married, should have had a kid, should have bought them 401ks. But anyway, Delano, I'm gonna let you have the final say, and then we'll see you guys tomorrow.
So one of the things that you were talking about, Jason, when you have family dynamics like this, like what you see with the guy, he got 17 kids, you can't even build generational wealth, because if he's a halfway decent, minimally decent dude, he has to take care of, let's say, at least 17, 18 households, right? So when it's like that, and we've seen this with professional athletes for a long time, when they had the documentary Broke, and I'm thinking, the one guy that always stands out to me is Travis Henry. I think he had like 11 kids by 10 different women. I don't care how much money you're making. A check that's being split 10 different ways is not gonna go very far. So all these conversations that we wanna have within the culture, quote unquote, about generational wealth and so on and so forth, presuppose that our family dynamics are straight, and they're not straight. They're completely crooked right now. Because the thing is, the best case scenario in this situation with this guy and all his baby mamas is that his child is the only child that each of them have. The most likely scenario is that some number of them have another 2 to 3 children. So here you get a spider web, right? And all these kids in all these different households. And not only, to Shamika's point, is it bad for the child and stability, it's also bad for the child's safety, because I'm not saying this is the case all the time, because I know plenty of, families, blended families that have been very successful. But oftentimes what sometimes one of the most dangerous places for a child is in the home with his mother's new boyfriend. Whether he's a male child and that male and the boyfriend sees him as a threat of one sort or another, or a female child. And this is not just some Tyler Perry. I'm not just because I watched, some Tyler Perry movie yesterday. My wife was a social worker for 5 years, and there were situations in which young girls were being preyed upon by their mother's boyfriends. Even Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson had a kid that he didn't even know about until a kid was killed by his the mother's boyfriend, right? So all of these things contribute to the conditions of our cities and the larger sort of quote unquote black community. Again, every black person is not living this way. There are plenty of middle class black folk, eating good and driving nice and living nice. But even those people refuse to say anything critical about this strain of black culture that has become predominant. And it's predominant because, again, and I've used this analogy before, somebody, I've been grocery shopping since I was 8 years old. If you got a batch of strawberries and there's one spoiled one in the middle, it only goes in one direction. Everything around it gets spoiled. The 15 that are in that package don't suddenly make the one in the middle become edible again. The Bible says that bad company corrupts good character. And we are being governed by people and led by people and influenced by people within the culture who have no problem promoting, glorifying, and commodifying bad character. And that's one of the reasons we see the things that we do today. So before people talk to me about all these gaps about wealth and income and educational outcomes, I'm saying, okay, as an engineer, I learned your outputs are dependent on your inputs. And if you got that guy, he got 17 different kids, obviously he doesn't live with 17 kids, right? So he may live with whoever his most recent child's mother is, and everybody else is getting the shaft. So when those kids go to school and they want to know where dad is at, and they start to act out, and people say, oh, what's the problem? Some goofball on MSNBC is going to say, oh, it's because of white supremacy and the curriculum is racist and so on. Nah, you got to start in the house. And until we're ready to have Jason, that's an actual uncomfortable conversation with a black man, right? Until we're ready to have those types of discussions, not the nonsense that Emmanuel Acho and people like him, like, the Ibram Kendis of the world, they think that making white people feel uncomfortable about how they live their lives is going to somehow impact us. No, we have to be willing to say, look, as a community, we are going to raise our standards or we are going to sink. It's you have to choose one. And we're at that point where that decision has to be made, and it has to be made quickly.
That's it, and that's all. Shamika, it was great having you.
Thank you for having me.
Good for being here. I hope you enjoyed Nashville last night. You were out late last night.
Yeah.
All right, I'm headed to Dallas. We'll see you tomorrow.
The breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff. Nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder. Making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on the corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom. I wanna be. I wanna